He had worked the same patch of land as his father and his grandfather before him, and he had watched each season return with slightly less than the one before. The earth around his village had always been poor. Not the dramatic poverty of a cracked desert, not the spectacle of dust rising in great orange columns, just the quiet, patient refusal of ground that had given what it could and would give no more. The steppe stretched in every direction like an unfinished thought. The low grass, pale and dry, bent in the wind without complaint. The sky above it remained enormous and indifferent throughout the seasons. The other families in the village understood the surroundings better and adjusted. They kept goats instead of planting. They drove their animals to wherever the grass was less reluctant. They learned the language of diminishment and spoke it without shame. The sower, however, was dyslexic and did not learn this language. He rose before the others always. In the last grey hour before dawn, he would stand at the edge of his field and look at the ground as though he owed it something, or as though it owed him something. His bag of millet hung from his shoulder, full and heavy, the small yellow grains packed tightly against the cloth. He had sourced the seed carefully, traded for it, carried it home with more attention than he gave most other things, and every morning he sowed it into soil that could not receive it. The other villagers said nothing at first. Then they said small things, kind things.
Sow it evenly, like this. I will.
The way one speaks to someone who is not entirely wrong, but is not entirely right either, like an unknowing child you sympathize for. His wife refilled his bag in the evenings without comment. She was a practical woman, and she understood, perhaps better than he did, that there are tasks to fulfill which have nothing to do with hunger. But the earth remained silent. Nothing and no one came. And one morning, no particular morning, nothing to mark it as different from the ones before, the sower simply kept walking. He sowed as he went, out past the boundary of his field, past the fence post that leaned slightly east, past the flat stone where he sometimes sat to eat at midday. He walked, and his hand moved in its accustomed arc, casting the millet in a wide, shallow curve to his right side. And he did not stop. He did not say goodbye to his wife, neither did he to the other villagers. It didn't feel like he was abandoning them, as what he did was a mere continuation of his work. The same conditions, same motion, only now the ground beneath it was changing slowly as he kept on walking. For a time, the land was still steppe, wide and open, the grass yellowing toward the horizon. He slept in the open, wrapped in his deal, the bag of millet tucked against his chest like a treasure he was protecting. In the mornings, he rose stiff as a bone and cold and resumed. The motion had become involuntary by now. Hand to bag, arc of the wrist, the quiet percussion of grain on dry earth. He did not think about it any more than a man thinks about his own breathing or his defecation. He passed through places that were almost villages, clusters of gurs set at distances that suggested community without quite committing to it. Dogs came to the edges of these places and watched him pass. Occasionally, a child watched too, from a distance, curious about the man who walked and scattered and did not stop. Once, he paused long enough to look back at a stretch of ground he had just sown. He stood there for some minutes, and a small wind moved across the ground and stirred a few grains loose, rolling them sideways. The sower turned and continued. The land began to change after many days. The grass thinned further, then gave way to scrub, then to stretches of bare, packed earth that the wind had scoured clean. The soil here was lighter in color, the color of old leather. He sowed into it without slowing. His footsteps raised small puffs of dust. The sky seemed lower than it had at home, or perhaps He had simply grown less accustomed to looking at it. He ate what he carried and what he could find. He drank from streams that appeared without explanation in the flatness and disappeared just as quickly. He slept less than he should have. At night, lying on his back, he would feel his hand still moving in its arc, not truly sowing seed, but moving in the memory of the muscles and in a different region of the body than at daytime, and this kept him from settling into the deeper sleep his body needed. He would rise unrested and continue anyway. The millet in his bag diminished. He noticed this the way one notices a change in weather, as fact, without particular feeling. He refilled it once from a small supply he had packed, shaking the new grain in over the old, feeling the bag grow briefly heavy again. Then that too began to go. The road appeared gradually, first as twin tracks pressed into the earth by heavy tires, then as a surface of crushed gravel, then as something harder, engineered. He walked alongside it rather than on it. The traffic was occasional at first, a truck moving in either direction, disappearing quickly into the flat distance, then more frequent, and then a kind of constancy. Buildings arrived at the road's edges, at first single structures, then clusters, then rows. He did not know exactly when he entered the city, because the city did not announce itself. It accumulated. The yurts gave way to concrete blockhouses, the blockhouses to taller buildings, the sky between the buildings shrinking into strips and then into narrow, pale channels overhead. The ground beneath his feet was no longer earth. He looked down at it as though seeing it for the first time, though he had been walking on it for some time already. Asphalt, dark gray, seamed and cracked in places, patched in others. The cracks held no soil, only dust, litter, and the compressed memory of 10,000 wandering feet. His hand moved into the bag. His fingers opened again, and the millet fell onto asphalt, into the gutter, against the base of a concrete wall. It lay there, each grain distinct and small and yellow against the gray ground. The city moved around him. He saw the shop in the middle of a block, between a mobile phone seller and a place that repaired shoes. It was small, the kind of shop that sold staples, flour, oil, salt, dried goods in plastic bags, and cardboard boxes arranged in a window display. And there, among the other items in the window, in a clear plastic bag tied at the top with a twist of wire, was millet. He stopped. The bag in the window held perhaps half a kilogram. The grains were small and yellow and identical, as far as he could see, to the grains he carried. He stood at the window for a long time. A man came out of the shop and looked at him briefly, then went in a different direction. He did not move. He thought about the road behind him, the long, cracked earth, the pale scrub, the twin tire tracks, the steppe opening in every direction. He thought about the small clouds of dust his footsteps had raised, and the way the wind had moved the grain sideways on the bare, packed ground. He thought about all the places where he had not stopped to look back. He went into the shop. He weighed the bag of millet in both hands. It was light.
Is everything all right?
No. Everything's all left.
Through the plastic, he could feel the grains shifting, settling, each one a small weight among many. He turned the bag over once, then again. He could not know whether someone had come after him along the road and found a green shoot in the cracked earth and cut it and threshed it and brought it here, whether this was his millet or millet from somewhere else entirely, some farm he had never seen, tended by hands that had never lost their patience. He could not know. The road was too long, and he passed the point where it was worth returning. The woman behind the counter said something, but he didn't quite hear her as he had acquired a cumulative hearing damage over the years of his wandering. Therefore, he looked at her, like a creep. She said it again. It appeared that it was a question. He placed the full bag back on the shelf. He said nothing, or perhaps he said something small, "Thank you," or "Sorry," or nothing at all, or perhaps a little more than that. Then he went back out through the door. On the pavement outside the shop, in the narrow strip of shade cast by the building's overhang, he sat down, his back against the wall, his legs stretched out in front of him on the grey ground. The bag of millet hung at his side. He put his hand into it one last time and felt the bottom of it, the coarse cloth, the last few grains gathered in the corners, less than a handful remaining.
Around him, the city continued. Feet passed close to his own. The sounds layered over each other without resolution. Voices, engines, the distant metallic complaint of construction. The sun moved in its arc above the buildings, indifferent and precise. The strip of sky visible between the rooftops was a pale, clean blue. The same blue, he thought, as the sky above the steppe, though he was not certain anymore. He sat still,